There's a particular kind of certainty that doesn't feel like certainty at all. It feels like clarity, like finally seeing the world as it actually is. You hold a view and about how people should work, how relationships should function, what counts as success, what counts as wasted time. And when someone challenges it, something inside you tightens. Not because you're insecure, because they're wrong, because you've thought about this, because you've lived it. And somewhere underneath that certainty, almost too quiet to hear, is a voice that sounds suspiciously like someone who raised you, taught you, mentored you, or simply got to your mind first. John Stuart Mill spent his life defending intellectual freedom. He wrote the most influential defense of individual liberty in the English language. He argued that no one should be forced to live according to another person's blueprint for what a good life looks like. And he did all of this while running, almost word for word, the philosophical operating system his father had installed in him before he was old enough to question it. His father, James Mill, designed an experiment. He would raise a child to be the perfect rational utilitarian. Greek at 3, logic at 8, political economy at 12. No friends his own age, no fairy tales, no room for sentiment that hadn't been pre-approved by reason. By the time John was a young man, he didn't experience these views as his father's. He experienced them as truth, and he defended them, refined them, extended them, with the precision only someone who has never stood outside a system can bring to defending it from within. This is what makes the pattern so difficult to see in yourself. The inherited blueprint doesn't feel inherited. It feels discovered. It feels like the conclusion you arrived at after honest thinking, even when the thinking was conducted entirely inside walls someone else built. The mechanics are quieter than you'd expect. When a framework arrives early enough from a parent, a mentor, an institution, a culture you were submerged in before you had language for it, your nervous system doesn't catalog it as an idea. It catalogs it as reality. Ideas can be examined. Reality is just what's there. So when you later articulate the framework, defend it, elaborate it, you're not adopting it. You're describing the room you've always lived in. And the more articulate you become, the more it feels like authorship. This is the part that's hardest to admit. Elaboration feels like ownership. If you can explain a worldview in your own words with your own examples refined by your own experience, it stops feeling borrowed. It starts feeling earned. The sophistication of your defense becomes proof in your own mind that you arrived here through thought rather than absorption. There's a reason the defense gets more intense, not less, over time. Each year you spend inside the framework, you accumulate more identity inside it. Friendships built on shared belief. Career built on its assumptions. Self-image organized around being the kind of person who sees things this way. To question the framework now isn't an intellectual exercise. It's a structural threat. So when someone challenges it, you don't experience curiosity. You experience something closer to vertigo. And you protect yourself by arguing harder. This is why the most zealous defenders of any system are rarely the ones who chose it. They're the ones who inherited it and need it to be true. Cradle believers can hold their inheritance loosely. Converts and inheritors, the ones whose identity formed inside the framework, defend it like the floor they're standing on. Because it is. You can feel this in places that have nothing to do with philosophy. The founder who absorbed Silicon Valley's mythology of disruption in their 20s and now preaches it as personal vision. The middle manager who repeats company values in meetings with a sincerity that surprises even them. The academic still defending their advisor's framework 30 years later, certain they extended it rather than inherited it. The child of immigrants enforcing their parents' definition of a successful life as if they personally derived it from first principles. The therapist defending the one modality they were trained in against every alternative. The activist whose moral vocabulary was handed to them by a community, now wielded as hard-won insight. None of these people are lying. That's what makes the pattern so durable. They genuinely experience the inherited blueprint as their own. The defense isn't dishonest. It's downstream of a confusion that happened so early and so completely that the seam between what was given and what was chosen disappeared. And there's a hidden comfort in this. Defending an inherited system gives you the feeling of having a worldview without the terror of building one. You get conviction without the vertigo of choosing from zero. You get a community of fellow defenders. You get moral clarity. You get to feel like an author while being spared the responsibility of authorship. The framework protects you from the question underneath it. What would you actually believe if no one had gotten there first? Mill, late in his life, began to feel the edges of this. He had what he called a mental crisis, a moment where he asked himself whether, if every reform he had been raised to pursue were achieved tomorrow, he would actually be happy. The answer, he realized, was no. The blueprint had given him purpose. It had not given him a self. He spent the rest of his life trying, quietly and imperfectly, to find what was actually his underneath what had been installed. You don't have to do anything with this yet. You don't have to dismantle your views or distrust your convictions or assume everything you believe is borrowed. Some of it probably isn't, but some of it almost certainly is, and the parts you defend with the most heat are the most likely candidates. The intensity is the tell. When a belief feels less like a position and more like a part of you that's being attacked, that's worth noticing. Not because the belief is wrong, because the relationship you have with it might be older than you are. This is the pattern. You inherited a blueprint, elaborated it until it felt like yours, and have been defending it ever since as the conclusion of your own thinking. You can see its shape now. That's enough for today.